Hello, I'm Ross Atkins. World Have Your Say has come to Dublin at the end of a week which has been described by some as a national humiliation for Ireland. Just a few hundred metres across town from where I'm standing, IMF and EU officials are meeting with Irish civil servants and politicians, and they're thrashing out this possible multi-billion euro deal which could prop up the Irish banking system. Some in the papers today have suggested it's the end of Irish sovereignty. But the Irish Prime Minister says it's absolutely nothing of the kind, and the Finance Minister has said there's nothing to be ashamed of. We're going to talk all this through with Irish people here in Dublin and around the world, but wherever you're watching BBC World News, if you have got questions or you want to take part in the discussion, here's how to do it. Call us on country code 44 20 70 83 72 72. You can text us from your mobile phone on country code 44 7786 20 60 80, or you can email us at worldhaveyoursay@bbc.com, or add a comment on the blog at worldhaveyoursay.com. Well, braving the late afternoon chill with me are Ken, who's the taxi driver who we met earlier. Nice to see you, Ken.
Thanks very much.
And Sarah Carey, who's a columnist with the Irish Times. Thanks for coming down, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Well, let me start with an email which we've received from Derry, who's in Dublin, here in Dublin, got in touch with the BBC and says, we don't need assistance. The EU is scared about the other weaker countries going under and is forcing us into this. Sarah, do you think that the Irish are being punished for problems with the Portuguese, Spanish and Greek economies?
It's very much a mix. We made our own problems here. We fueled a property bubble which has burst, and banks' debts became the state's debts and got us into trouble. But there is no doubt that what is going on here is an attempt to stave off trouble in the larger economies like Portugal and most of all, of course, Spain, because the EU, the IMF, they can bail us out no problem. They're terrified of what might happen if trouble moves to Spain.
And I was mentioning, Ken, these comments that this is an absolute disaster for Ireland, your sovereignty is gone. Do you think that's melodramatic, or is it really that serious?
No, I think it's really that serious. I think at the end of the day, people fought and died for this country, and they certainly didn't, envisage the country going in the situation in the way it's gone. And I think it's an absolute disgrace that Brian Cowan is out in Dublin Airport cutting ribbons. When the IMF are here in town, he should be here sorting this out. It's a leader we need.
Well, if you agree with Ken or otherwise, if you're anywhere near your computer, open up Facebook. We're at facebook.com/worldhaveyoursay. Let's bring in our first guest from London. Bupe Ngoy is a Portuguese Londoner based in the UK capital. Thanks very much for joining us. I mean, let's get you to pick up on that email we received from Dublin. Do you think the Irish are being punished for problems elsewhere in Europe?
Not really, Ross. I just feel that the whole of Europe is going through this economic problem. And I'm here really to speak about Portugal, because I find that if the Irish are going to be bailed out, if they're going through this crisis, it's not a humiliation. It's going on everywhere around Europe at the moment. And I think the Irish need this bailout, just as Portugal will have to get the bailout in the near future. And I just feel that they need it. They just need to get this money. They just need, the European Central Bank needs to help them out at this moment in time.
And that's an interesting point, Sarah, that our guest there from Portugal saying that the Irish need this. And I was listening to a radio phone-in as we drove here an hour ago, and it was interesting. The people phoning up were saying, we're hurt this is happening, but we also accept it's necessary.
Yes, there has been a lot of disappointment in our national government. This crisis really started and the floor was hit in September 2008. And there has been a feeling that the Irish government hasn't dealt properly with the situation. They did make cuts, but a lot of people felt more cuts could have been made. And some people think, you know what, if it takes the IMF to sort this out, to reform the banking structures the way they need to be, well then so be it. Let them do it, and let them do it right.
And I should tell those of you watching, there's an apt symbol of the problems with the Irish economy just behind me. I don't know if you can see it. Right down the end of the road is what would have been the Anglo-Irish Bank's new headquarters, but it's nowhere near finished. Work on it is completely ground to a halt. There's also, just up there, a life jacket by the river, which is also, some people have been pointing out to us, rather apt considering that the IMF and the EU are in town. Well, let's bring in a couple more guests now. Dario's joining us on Skype. He's elsewhere in Ireland. He's a trainee pilot. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What's your mood as your country takes all this assistance from the IMF?
Well, I've just been listening to what you were saying there, and can I start off by saying that I disagree with Ken on the idea that we're losing our sovereignty. What our founding fathers fought for was the freedom to speak our language and express our culture, and there's no way that the Irish are going to let that go. We are a very proud people. Yes, temporarily we're going to lose our financial sovereignty, and I feel it's quite apt that that's going to happen. We've been led by a share of incompetent people. They're well-heeled people, let it be said. Our Taoiseach Brian Cowan is from a family dynasty. His father would have been a TD and a minister, if I'm not mistaken. And,
sorry, Dahi, I didn't mean to talk. I'm talking across you, Dahi, because you're coming in and out as you're talking to us. I think the viewers can probably hear you a little better than I can. Thank you for that point. So it's interesting in you making the distinction between sovereignty, the broader issue of sovereignty, and financial sovereignty. Maybe Neil Chennai from Johns Hopkins University can help us with this, because Neil, you're doing a PhD on financial crises. Do you think that the idea of sovereignty when it comes to economic policy is increasingly out of date?
Certainly for so-called peripheral countries, their autonomy to craft their own economic policy has largely been delegated to different sort of supranatural bodies like the European Central Bank, and I think that this is a great example of that. Political sovereignty is a totally different thing. Governmental sovereignty is different than economic sovereignty, but absolutely. Not only are they ceding their sovereignty to foreign government bodies, but they're also ceding a lot of sovereignty to the global financial markets, which I think is an oft overlooked aspect of this crisis, and how much statecraft now is really determined by the behavior of a handful of traders who decide the market value of Irish debt.
Bupe, Portuguese lawyer in London, do you agree that actually we should let go of this idea that individual countries have total control of their economies?
Ross, I don't think so. I think when people joined, when we all came together and became part of the European Union, there's the responsibility of other country members to sort of help out those that are not doing very, very well. I think the Irish and the Portuguese countries, the Irish people and the Portuguese people, are a very skilled people, very hard-working, resilient people. And I think that they all try as hard as they can to migrate and work wherever they can. But if the economy is in such a state, we all have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to help each other out. I think the time has come now to show who the European Union really is. And this is what we've come to. Push comes to shove. We've got to really work hard now and come together and help those that are not able to sustain their economy and bring them up to that level.
It's interesting you're talking about what the EU actually is. Online, many people are talking about what the EU should become and the fact that the Germans have long wanted more integration when it comes to fiscal policy. It'll be interesting to see if they get their way.